Hello, Sister Kate here. So I was listening to the radio, and on it there was an Australian lady. It was a documentary about being poor in the United States, and an Australian voice, very sympathetic, talking about poor people in Southern California and how cost of living went up so high that there were people there who were living in their cars. Okay, that happens. She made 2 points that I want to talk about. One was some of the people living in their cars. One of them had been like a computer program engineer or something, and he had had heart problems. He was in his 50s, and he had basically spent all his savings on his health issues, and then that made him lose his apartment and so on. I'm not unsympathetic to people, but I don't like to hear people whining about their situation when they didn't try to take steps to correct it. So first off, what comes to my mind is he should have switched to a better insurance. Now, I know y'all are going to say, maybe he didn't have time, he had to work full time, and there's no way for him to shop around, etc., etc. Maybe, but he also could have shopped around, and he could have gotten it through the internet or over the phone or whatever. That's number one. And number two, he's a single guy making an engineer's money, and he still can't figure out a way to be self-supporting in his 50s. To me, that means he wasn't taking his future seriously. And it's not just me. Pastor and I've explained it in other videos, we only ever lived on one income, his income. We sat down and had serious discussions about what we were going to do as a married couple once he had had so many years in the military. Was he going to stay in? Was he going to get out? What was the better deal? What would he do if he did get out? What were our alternatives? What were the benefits to staying in, etc.? And we chose a path that we thought made the most sense. Now, that's us. I know it can be done because we did it. My mom is another example of someone who made smart choices. She was a widow. There was some life insurance, and she got it. And instead of buying herself a new car or going to Las Vegas, she invested that money, and her investments at the time doubled that money. And then she bought some real estate in an area that is busy. And with real estate, your number one concern is location, location, location. You want to buy, if it's going to be a financial thing for you, you want to buy real estate in an area where the real estate will have value again when you are leaving. And near schools and near hospitals and all the things that a small city to a large city will offer are some of the things you look at when you're going to buy real estate. And real estate is a big investment. Unless you do an RV somewhere on a piece of land that nobody wants and is cheap, but buying a house somewhere is an investment. And it's an investment because somebody had to spend money to purchase the land that the house is on, and because somebody else had to buy all the materials to build the house. The house didn't just appear out of nowhere. Somebody bought the lumber and the plumbing and the electrical and put it all together, and that took their time and their money. And so it's an investment. And to me, if you're an engineer and you are not wise about what to do with your money, then that's on you. And the people who made the documentary were, very sympathetic and saying, that the county's not helping this man, and it's just a terrible thing that he's poor and living in his car and so forth. It's true. But the Bible also said there will always be poor. So, and if you make your bed, you're going to reap what you sow.
In a quarter mile, turn left onto Oklahoma 10 South.
Shut up, you crazy. So, make wise choices. It's not just a thing. And let me turn this down for 1 minute. if I can get that thing to... Here, I'll do that instead. Come here. Hey.
Take the next left onto
No, I don't
Oklahoma
want to
10
do that
South.
thing. You need to be quiet. And then they gave the show, the documentary, had another woman who was also living in her car. She was working as someone who does home care, and she worked long hours, and it was hard work. And her story was she was married to someone for 5 years, and then the husband decided the marriage was over, and she decided she was going to let him have everything, and she wasn't going to fight him for anything, and she basically made herself homeless. She had an accent, and so it makes me think she probably was some kind of illegal, not alien, but illegal, I guess alien, and she sounded like she might have been from Russia. So she may have been a mail-order Russian bride or something. She seemed kind of old for that, but I don't know. But I think the reason she probably didn't contest her ex-husband in court was because she was illegal, and so if she, comes on the radar of the government, they're going to kick her out and send her back to wherever she came from. To me, again, that's kind of not the best planning in the world. If you're going to marry an American to get to America, and you're not going to become a citizen, you're running a risk there. And sure, I get it. Coming to America is probably better than where she came from. But you have to have some plans. You have to have a fallback for that kind of thing. If she came here to marry an American, one of the things she would have wanted to think about was what happens if this doesn't work out. What am I going to do? And home health care is there. It's one of those things that's always available. And you can probably work for a private agency, so you don't have to, maybe give so much personal information. But there's other ways to make money in America that wouldn't be so physically difficult on her. And being in Southern California and homeless strikes me as, that's not great either. I would definitely move to somewhere where the cost of living wasn't so high. I know, it's easy for me to second guess what people do, but what kind of made me angry was the way the documentary, it put the onus on everyone else to support these people. And I'm sorry, I think there is some recourse for that. There is some government assistance and so on, and even churches. If you have a church and your church has a building and resources, one of the things the church would do is help out widows and orphans. But a grown man at 54 is not a widow or an orphan. And a widow is not a 50-year-old woman either. She's supposed to get remarried. And she's also supposed to serve the Lord in order for a church to support her. And her family is the number one support for her. And a 54-year-old man is supposed to work, get a job. You're work from sun up to sundown kind of thing. But my second point about the documentary was they were talking about evictions. And they cited Richmond, Virginia as a place where there's more evictions than other parts of the country. And then they gave a circumstance where a single mom with an adult daughter had been renting a place for a long time, and she was being evicted. I can only assume she got behind in her rent. And the landlord was well within his right to have her evicted. The state of Virginia is very pro the landlord. Am I running out of time? Stayed very favorable to the landlord, as is other states around the country. But here's the thing. The landlord is the one who has the most at stake when there's a renter in their property. Because again, any house costs money. So the person who owns it has already had to put out money, and the house will have value for that person if they can resell it. So they need that house to be in decent shape. It needs to be in decent order. And of course, when you have a renter, you can do things like paint the walls and and change the carpet out, and it'll make the general appearance of the house better, kind of simply and not too expensively. But things like holes in the wall or torn out electric wires or broken pipes and water leaking will diminish the value of that house. And so it's in the landlord's interest that a renter be responsible. And when you're not responsible, or if you get behind on your rent, the person who owns the house is now losing money. It's not even like they're holding even, because they still have to pay their taxes and their insurance on that property and a mortgage if they weren't able to pay for that property in total. If they had to get a mortgage, then they are still having to pay all that. And usually with renters, the person that you rent from is trying to just have the rent be something that covers those initial costs, not things like if a tree falls through the roof or if you damage that house while you're living in it. So what's at stake there is somebody else's money.
In a half mile, turn left.
So the landlord has a financial stake in their house, and that financial stake represents his time and his money. Because unless you're, born into a rich family, what people have is what they work to get. And so if someone has worked to get a house, then that house represents their value, their time and their hard work. And so if you're a renter and you're costing them money, that's like a negative. You're not being a benefit to them. You're actually being a negative, and they have a right to evict you. And a way to avoid being evicted, save your money, buy your own house. It's the smarter decision. So I really didn't like this movie for showing people who were being evicted as, we should feel sorry for them. In my mind, I was thinking, live within your budget. Don't rent a house if you cannot pay the rent of it. Downsize yourself. Pastor and I are living in a tiny little cottage, 20 by 30, because it's easier for us to take care of and make the move. You know what I mean? You want to make smart decisions. You want to make smart financial decisions. You want to look to your future and how you're going to provide for yourself and be content with it. Someone else was telling me today, or we heard it or something, it was my mom. As soon as you give up control to someone else, your life is going to take a downturn, because nobody cares about you like you do. No one's going to support you in your old age unless it's something you've set up beforehand, like raised your children with an understanding that they will support you when you're older, or when you get hired on, if they have a retirement plan, take advantage of that, because all of us, it's a fact, we're all going to get older. We all can't just party on until even if you're rich and you keep partying on, it takes a toll physically, mentally, and emotionally. Make smart choices, make healthy choices, make wise choices. If you're going to be a renter, be a responsible renter. The Bible says, be the best servant that the master has, so that when he looks at you and other people look at you, they say, why is he so much better than everybody else? Because of his faith. Be a good renter, take care of the landlord's property, and he's more, or she is more likely to let you stay there and to make concessions for you. Like some of the deals we've worked in the past is, if we make an improvement to the property, we write that off the rent for that month. If we upgrade the lighting, if we fix the broken pipe, if we paint, the wall, if it had a problem, then we get to take that equal cost out of the rent for the month. And that means you don't have to have as much outlay initially. The other thing is that contract between you and your landlord, you sign it, but you get to read it beforehand. And if you don't want to agree with some of the terms of it, then just scratch it out, put your initials. That person has to initial that too and understand that you are not agreeing to that particular part of that contract. And And sometimes, once you've signed the bottom, they don't even bother to go back and read if you've put it in there. You can also add things. If you wanted to say, I can write off costs that I improve the property, you can write that into the contract and you sign it, and if they read it and agree to it and they sign it, then the contract is what it is. There's leeway there. So just be smart, and I don't think we need to have feeling sorry for every person who's made dumb decisions in their life. I think we should use them as a lesson to make smart decisions in our own lives, and they don't show anything back before the documentary starts. What did this guy do? Where did he live, and how did he said he lost his apartment. Was it an apartment that cost him $3,000 a month because it had, a pool in it and some kind of fancy lighting and everything? We don't know. Same thing with the lady who was married. We don't know. We don't know the specifics. But I do know the specifics of the people, myself and my mom, and the decisions we have made in our lives that help us out. My mom today said, she went to some place and got her lunch, and she goes every Sunday, and it's a deal where the appetizer at the restaurant is half price or something, and she goes every Sunday to get it because she's old. She doesn't necessarily want to cook for herself, so she finds a deal, and that's where she goes. She doesn't order caviar she can't afford. She doesn't buy a $25 steak at a restaurant that she can't afford. She lives within her budget, and so she is still, at 83 years old, able to take care of herself. Her husband had life insurance for her. He had health insurance for her that they paid for and they planned for, so that now that she's 83 or 84, she is able to live comfortably, and that's the way to do it. All right, thanks, y'all. Also, I heard and read the comments about the music on my last video. Made it hard for everyone to understand me. I got that message loud and clear. Thank you. And that some of you were very kind to say that I don't need music. What I say is worth listening to. I really appreciate that, y'all. That makes me feel good. All right, bless you all. Shalom.